Hello and welcome back to the NFL DFS Slate Breakdown for Week 16. We are already here. It is the end or towards the end of the season. As always, I'm your host, Tyler Weeman at FlatTyler83 on your DFS sites and on Twitter. Now, come join us at LineStar. $39.99 per month gets you access to all we do, all the props, all the DFS. You get it all one low price for both our app and our website. Now, let's dive in. Let's take a look at this big boy slate. We got a lot to cover. And starting with the highest game total games. Now, I don't want to name them all because there are so many. You can see it all up here. But literally like half of the slate is 45 or over. Everything else is below. Those higher game totals tend to be where the ownership goes, and I'm interested in a lot of them. The other aspect is the quicker games of the week. Now, that's something you don't see through the game total. It doesn't always mean a quicker game, higher scoring, but there is more potential for fantasy points due to the fact that, just more rushes, more pass attempts, all of that kind of adds up. So, fastest game of the week, we got, Cleveland and Cincinnati. We have the Jets and the Rams and Dallas at Tampa Bay. Generally, when we have a slate where one of the faster games is Tampa Bay, Dallas, I go to the fourth fastest also. But hey, this week, there's a lot of teams just like kind of in the average speed range. So we're going to leave it at that. I think this is a very interesting week because there's a lot you can do here from a game theory aspect and stacking. You can go heavy stacking. Hopefully one of, the 6-7 games that have potential to shoot out, and you can just overload stack there. Or you can do, more skinny stacks, which isn't so much, if you're doing that, you're more so like, well, I don't think any game is really going to stand out, but I like this quarterback paired with this wide receiver and, do smaller 2-3 man stacks at most and run with it. But we're going to dive into all the players as always. Position by position, starting off at good old quarterback. Highest owned quarterback, Michael Penix Jr. He is 6K. He is going to be the starter for the Falcons. My issue with him on FanDuel is he is 6K, and I don't think he can really pay off that salary. Where he's on DraftKings at 4,500, I'm absolutely going to have some over there. But on DK, where you're 6K, or FD, where you're 6K, I find it very hard to want to go there. The other thing is we've seen all season long this Falcons team needs to be pushed to throw the ball. And you really think they're going to have a rookie in their first start just start slinging it? No, it's going to be the same thing. They're going to try and bring him along slow. They aren't going to try and just put the whole game on his back the first game. They're going to try and run in the ball, manage the game a little bit, and give him looks that put him in the best situations. And with that, I just can't really take Penix. I don't think the Giants can push the Falcons. All right, Josh Allen. Guy has been absolutely amazing lately. 41, 52, 28 the last 3 games. And I think everybody's going to be clamoring to pay up for him and play him due to these games. But this is my issue. The Rams were able to score 42. The Lions were able to score, the Rams 44. The Lions score 42. That is the recipe that's needed for Josh Allen to say, hey, everybody get on my back. I'm going to pull us into victory or give us a chance to win this game. A 30-10 win by Josh Allen isn't going to do that. And if you see his 30-20s games, all of that, he's usually in the low to mid 20s. That's my issue here. I don't see it being a spot where the Patriots score enough to really push Josh Allen to rush as much as he can, to get those rushing touchdowns. And I see this as a week as they can, I don't want to say rest Josh Allen because he's going to play the whole game, but take it a little easier on him. Let the running backs do the work and, get it out to the wide receivers. Don't make it where Josh Allen has to run the ball and put his body at harm. So that's my thing with Josh Allen. I'm fine if you want to have a little bit. I just don't see a ceiling outcome for him. His median projection is good. It should be. The most likely outcome is 22, 25 points, something like that, which is great. If you're in a cash game, fine, run with it. But in a GPP, I just can't really go there. Next, we got Anthony Richardson, 7,400, 11% owned. I got to tell you, I'm going to have some Anthony Richardson. I like this spot for him. We have seen him have his ups and downs this year, but he's been okay since he got benched, since he's came back. Now, Tennessee has also let some rushing quarterbacks go nuts versus them. So I like the upside here versus Tennessee. I'm also not scared of that secondary. They just haven't had teams that really have to throw against them. So their game script wise, Tennessee is generally behind. This is a game that Tennessee may be able to stay competitive for a little bit. And I don't mind facing that defense for the Colts and Anthony Richardson. I'm going to take some swings on Anthony Richardson for sure. Jared Goff, I'm fine. Sprinkling in. The only thing with him, it's in Chicago. It's cold. He's not the best outdoors. Brock Purdy. One thing I want to say about Brock Purdy. I don't totally love Tua or Brock in this game. I am interested in this game as a whole. But the one thing that I think is interesting about Brock Purdy is they are down to Patrick Taylor at running back. There is a chance that they don't run the ball quite as much as they have been over, the last few years or the Kyle Shanahan era. And if that's the case, it means Brock Purdy throws more. If Brock Purdy throws more, there's some major upside at 7,500. So a little interested in Purdy. Now let's get to some pivots that I like. Also, I want to talk about Burrow, just in case you want to play him. It's DTR as the quarterback for Cleveland. With that, I'm out on Burrow. Now, the Browns are very aggressive and take some chances. So there is big play potential for the Bengals, but Burrow gets there when they really have to air it out, and I just don't think they're going to have to air it out. The other thing, the last 4 years, Cleveland has been pretty good against Burrow as a quarterback. 9 points, 14, 18, 3, 15. The game to me just doesn't profile great for Burrow to really come out and dominate. All right, now let's get into some pivots. Jalen Hurts, 6K. Guy has 330-point games, has a 28. He is one of the guys that has a chance to hit 30 or 30 plus this week. So I got to consider him. Him or Barkley for the Eagles have gone for 30 in like 9 of 14 games or something like that. It's just an incredible pace. So for that, I think you got to consider some Hurts, obviously consider some Barkley. Baker Mayfield, 48 is the highest game total here. Now, the Dallas Cowboys have been playing much better on defense since Micah Parsons is back, so I don't love the spot quite as much as I would have a couple weeks ago, but I still think that Mayfield can get to this Cowboys, and they need every win they can right now in this last playoff push here. So the other thing is K. Dotton is doubtful, so that, target tree is a little bit smaller, making it a little easier to stack. You take Mike Evans, maybe Rashad White picks up a couple more receptions because no K. Dotton, or maybe it's Jalen McMillan or one of the other wide receivers there. So I think it's interesting to go to Baker. I don't love it, but I'm going to probably sprinkle in some. All right, Matt Stafford, Aaron Rodgers. This is just a game environment play. It's one of the faster games of the week. Both quarterbacks can get it done. Rodgers just went for 30, 289, and 3 tutties. 45 yards rushing too, which I didn't think the old man had that in him still, but he does. And I mean, they gave him a chance to kind of sling it out a little bit. Rodgers has been consistent to get it done, just not necessarily throwing the ball a ton. Hopefully they will chuck the ball a little bit more, but I think there's a path to success here. Now, I do prefer the Matthew Stafford side of this. Over the last 4 games, the Jets given up 275.8 yards per game and 1.5 touchdowns. Also allowing 38 attempts per game. I think there's a spot here where Matthew Stafford just airs it out, and this Jets defense seems like it's given up a little bit. Then on the other side, you can bring it back with Devontae Adams or Garrett Wilson. All the targets go to those two guys, so I think it's an interesting game theory play. Puka's been a beast. Cooper Kupp can get his. I think there's some interest to this game, and with Stafford only at 7,100, it makes it extremely interesting for the upside that he has when he has weapons like Puka and Cooper Kupp. Caleb Williams, 7,200, put up 26 versus them about a month ago. Detroit's defense is even further beat up now. I think there's a path where Caleb just has to throw the ball a ton, and this secondary is beatable. They're allowing 250 yards a game, allowing 1.5 touchdowns a game over the last 4. I think it's an interesting spot when Caleb can also add another few points on the ground. At 7,200, he gives you some upside. So the way you're taking these lower price guys is it is the thought that Allen doesn't get to 30, Hurts doesn't get to 30, Mayfield doesn't get to 30, and then one of these other guys goes 25, plus. So I think there is absolutely a path to that happening. All it takes is Hurts to not do the work and it to be Barkley. Allen, you just don't want a shootout. And I would say that's likely. The other option that could go to 30 would be Jaden Daniels, who's only done it once all year, but he also has 3 28 pluses. So he's been able to put up a big score, but now he's versus an Eagles D that just has not allowed quarterbacks to do much at all. This D has been solid all year long. I don't love Jaden in this spot, but with his rushing ability, I think there is a little bit of an upside here. The other thing is that they need every win they can get to get into the playoffs, and a divisional win is a huge one for them. So they're going to pull out all the stops too to get there, and a little rushing upside doesn't hurt. So that's the whole reason for Jaden Daniels is that rushing upside. Now, let's get over to DraftKings and look at the quarterback spot. Our high owned, we got Kyler Murray, 18% owned, 6,100 versus Carolina. Gotta love that. The only issue here is that James Conner is going to touch the ball a ton, but it's all about where the touchdowns flow, and they're going to be able to move the ball against Carolina. Just does it come from Kyler and his arm, Kyler on the ground, or is it James Conner? I think there's a path for Kyler. I'm fine having some. I do have to say that I think 18% owned is a bit high on him. Penix, 4,500 is interesting. Caleb, 5,500, super interesting. Darnold, 65. I think there's a slim path to a shootout here, but I think it's a very slim path. I think most likely outcome is the Seahawks really have trouble to move the ball much against Minnesota, and then neither team has to really air it out. So that's my only worry there. Darnold's been solid all year, and if it's a situation where one of these, where you only need 25, out of the quarterback spot, then Darnold, I think, is in play. But if it's a slate where we need, 30, then I have a hard time wanting to go to Darnold. One other pivot I wanted to talk about on DraftKings is Aiden O'Connell. He's 5,100. He gave us 25 just a couple weeks ago versus a tough KCD. Now he has the best matchup in all of football. You have Jacoby Myers and Brock Bowers, which he's just going to hyper target. So great, easy stacking partners. And then if you want to bring it back with Brian Thomas, you absolutely can. So I think it's an easy, interesting kind of stacking game that will be relatively low cost and let you go get some studs, Barkleys, Gibbs, whatnot. So on DraftKings, where he's only 5,100, I think that's a very interesting way to build. All right, now let's get into the running back spot on DraftKings. So Jahmyr Gibbs, 3,100. He is going to be, or 31% owned, 8,300. He is going to be super high owned, as he should be. Now, the one thing I have to say about it is if you just look at our projection, we have Barkley by 2 points. Barkley is way less owned. I think it absolutely makes some sense to go Barkley over Gibbs if you can afford it. However, Jahmyr Gibbs is going to be out on the field 65, 70% of the time and truly has a game where you have 25 plus touch outcomes. This is a guy that has been hyper efficient, giving you 25, 30-point games without that number of touches. He's also in a good spot. If you look at our team defense tool, Jahmyr Gibbs on the very top, Chicago, 32nd over the last 5 games, over the last 10, 31st, over the season, 29th. He's in an amazing spot. I love Gibbs. I'm going to have a ton of him. He's going to be high owned, but I'll eat the chalk. And running back's the spot I will eat the most chalk by far. Chuba Hubbard, 7,100 and 26% owned. It's versus this Cardinals D. This Cardinals D has been so Jekyll and Hyde. I'm fine having a little bit of Hubbard. He is good and he can get it done, but I don't absolutely love this spot for him. But I'm going to have some. Bijan Robinson, 8,900, 23% owned versus the Giants. Giants D has just kind of given up. They've really given it up on the ground. 108 yards a game, 1.3 touchdowns a game. Opponent ranked is 32 over the last 4. There's a ton of reasons to like Bijan Robinson here. The other thing is they have been giving him touches. 26 and 6 receptions, 22, 2 receptions, 22, 1 reception. He's been getting the ball a lot, and that's obviously going to keep going with Penix. And then you got a good spot. So I'm fine going with some Bijan. Chase Brown, 8,200. He's been pretty much a free square since he's taken the role. I am fine to go to Chase. I love him again. We'll absolutely do it. Devon Achane. This is one I want to talk about. He has not been that productive lately, but he's been getting the targets and the touches we wished he would get. There's another aspect. Jaden Waddle may not play. If Waddle is out, Achane looks much, much more interesting. I think more dump-offs go his way, and he's already averaging 6.8 targets a game over the last 4. So that goes up a little bit. You still get some of his rushing attempts, and it's a little interesting. But that 49ers defense is getting healthier and has played very good all year. That is the only reason that I haven't liked Achane, but I did want to talk about him. All right, now let's get into pivot time. Saquon. If you matched his big games up with Hurts, it would be one of them getting like multiple touchdowns almost every week. One of these guys, Barkley or Hurts, is going to get it done. It's just how it is, week in and week out. There's going to be some points scored in this game. I love some Barkley. He did great versus them last time, 26 rushes for 146 and 2 to go along with 2 receptions and 52. It is one of his 30-point games, and I mean, he's got 5 of them. He, like 30% of the games, he's going for 30 plus. You got to consider him, especially when he isn't going that high owned. So I'm going to have some Barkley, especially if he is low owned. I'm going to try and push a little bit more of him. The one thing I'll say here is that, Hurts can eat into some of those touchdowns. The other aspect, he needs to average like 140 yards a game over the last few games to take out Dickerson's record. And I do think there is a chance that whole Eagles team wants him to get there. So I'm interested there. I think there's a path. I like it. James Conner, 8,400. Look, he's pricey. I am shocked to see him at 8,400, but he has had a great role this season, and he keeps getting it done. And if you look at last year, end of the year, he did the same thing where he just came on and really started scoring. Now he's in just an amazing spot versus Carolina. They're allowing 160.5 rushing yards per game to the running back and 0.3 touchdowns over the last four. Over on the season, it's 1.1 touchdowns and 141 rushing yards. The other thing is Carolina's been playing a little bit better, so they've been able to stay in games a little bit more, allowing the RB1 to get a little bit more work. I think Connor's in a great spot. I'm absolutely fine taking him. I'm going to. Aaron Jones is a tough one for me because he hasn't really shown us much ceiling, but I do like the spot that he's in. I'm going to have a little bit, and I think he's just going to go a little under-owned from what he should be. Patrick Taylor, 4,800. He's too cheap not to consider. Then you add in the fact that so far nobody's there. Nobody's going there ownership-wise. Everybody just assumes that it's going to be a split backfield. But what if it's not? If it's not a backfield, this is like a 4K DraftKings receiver or running back, which is like almost an auto lock. So I think there's absolutely a path to Patrick Taylor, even though the Dolphins have been very good. Patrick Taylor also is not like a tiny running back. He's like 6'2". He's been in the league for 3 or 4 years. He has 66 total games. Not really worried about his pass protection. It's just, do the 49ers trust him enough to let him run with the work? I think there's a path. I'm fine taking some swings here. I am surprised that he's not higher owned at 4,800. Rachaad White, 7K. I talked about this one a little bit. There's no Kate Otten, so maybe he gets a few more dump-offs. Bucky Irving also could get the dump-offs. The one thing with this play and why I've liked White and not Irving is this right here. Over the last 4 games, Cowboys, 55 yards a game on the ground, 0.3 touchdowns. They've just been extremely tough, and so with that, I struggle to really want too many Tampa Bay running backs, but I think there is a path with additional targets. I hate saying anything about a Raiders running back, but at 5,600 versus a terrible Jags D, Madison's a little bit interesting. Sinceres is going to be out, and I mean, Madison could get some. I don't love it. It's just a cheap one that I wanted to throw out there. And then the last one I just want to throw out just in case is Craig Reynolds. And the reason being is what we have seen the Lions is they like going with their 2 running back committee. Now, last year when either Gibbs or Montgomery was out, the other one had like 70% of the snaps. So I don't think it's likely that Reynolds gets a big portion of the workload. But there are paths. A blowout, he gets more. Or, Dan Campbell has also said this week that they want to be smart about how they want to use Gibbs and that he's not a guy that they want to just give a ton of volume to. With that being said, they still need to lock up, the best playoff position they absolutely can. And to do that is Gibbs. But if they take it easy on how much work they give Gibbs, then Craig Reynolds starts to look a little interesting. I think that's only a play for your giant GPPs, where you need some way to get different who could get a touchdown or 2. So if you're in a single entry contest or, a small entry field contest, I would take Craig Reynolds out of the player pool. All right. Now, running back on DK, Gibbs, Brown, Madison, we talked about them all. Connor's there. Jerome Ford, we haven't talked about. He's 5,600. There is a path. I'm fine if you want some Jerome Ford. My issue with Jerome Ford is its DTR. And I think that Cincinnati might as well just stack the box and, not let Ford do much, because I don't think DTR can pass much. It's like going back to Watson era Cleveland Browns offense. So not good. All right. On to wide receiver. High owned Jalen Coker, 24% owned. I shout out Cooker last week. Let's refresh here. I don't know why it's... All right, there we go. I shout out Coker last week. He had 6 targets, 4 for 110 and a tutty. Hopefully you guys played him. He had a game. Now he's only 300 more. I'm fine playing some of him. I don't love the ownership. I would rather go Thielen, but Xavier Legette is out, and so more work is likely to go to Coker. DJ Moore, very interested in him this week, especially if you're going with a Caleb stack or if you wanted to go a Goff stack. I think there's a path with DJ Moore to just help facilitate that game go fast. 8,900, Puka Nacua. Dude's been an absolute beast. Ton of targets going his way, week in and week out, and I'm fine taking some against the Jets, who have allowed 202 receiving yards to the wide receiver over the last 4. That's per game, and one touchdown a game. I think him and Cooper Kupp are absolutely in the player pool. Damari Douglas, I don't love it. He just doesn't have the ceiling. Jerry Jeudy, I'm totally off with DTR. Keenan Allen, 6,200. I'm going to have some of him with Caleb stacks. Probably won't really touch him without Caleb, though. But versus the Lions is when he did have his 5 receptions, 73 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Adam Thielen, we touched upon him a little bit. I do like Thielen and will be playing some of him. And then we got Juwan Jennings. Juwan Jennings is one of my favorite plays, especially on that afternoon aspect of these games. Since he's been taking that 2 role, he's been targeted a ton. He's getting a ton of targets, 7.3 per game. He has big time upside, has had 2 games of, over 25, one of which was a 41. And I'm fine to go here. I like it. I think this is a spot where there could be some offense. Dolphins have been scoring. This 49ers offense can score. They haven't been great lately, but they've still had a couple blow-up games. 38 points versus Chicago, 23 Tampa Bay, 30 versus Dallas, 36 versus Seattle. They still can put up those big scores. They're just not as consistent with it as they've been in years prior. Brian Thomas Jr., 7,300. I am absolutely interested in him. The Raiders stinks, and Max Crosby's out, which just gives them more time to get deep. And BTJ has huge upside. I mean, we just saw it last week. 10 for 105 and 2 tutties. Josh Downs, 6K. Look, I like the Colts a little bit. While I don't think there's, 40-point upside from this offense, I don't mind going Josh Downs or Adai Mitchell, who is another guy, Adonai Mitchell, 4,900. And when he has been able to come in, has done well. I was big on him last time in week 13, but that was when Josh Downs was out. It is Alec Pierce that's out this time. So I think that what's going to happen is he will be on the field 80-90% of the time. He took that Josh Downs slot role last time, was only on the field like 60%. I think with Alec Pierce out, he is going to be on the outside. Downs will still be in the slot, and then you have Pittman on the other side, and Mitchell's target rate when he's on the field is very, very high. So I think at 4,900, he's one of my favorite value pieces this week, and I'm definitely taking some of him. I like Josh Downs as that target stack option as well. Jacoby Myers, Brock Bowers, love them this week. I'm going to have one of them in a lot of my lineups. Garrett Wilson, Devontae Adams, I think they're in a great spot versus the Rams and going to get a lot of both of them. Garrett Wilson's the cheaper one, so I went there, but Devontae Adams is consistently getting more targets, a little more red zone work too. Garrett Wilson kind of needs to make some big plays happen to really to get it done. A.J. Brown, Barkley, Hurts. That is where all the scoring comes from on this offense. I'm going to have some A.J. Brown. He was the squeaky wheel and got 11 targets. That could come into this next week as well, so definitely interested in him. Nightcap with CeeDee Lamb is extremely interesting. He's been targeted a ton, 13 last week, 7, 6, 12, 12, 10, 12, 17. The targets are there. Tampa Bay secondary hasn't been great. While they've been good lately, only allowing 129.5 receiving yards over the last 4 on the season. They ranked 24th in the secondary, and there hasn't been a huge change. It's mainly just who they've gone against. Mike Evans, on the other side, huge upside. This guy needs to hit 1,000 yards. And Baker Mayfield, I was going to say Teddy Bridgewater, Baker Mayfield can absolutely target him and will target him a ton. Baker is very much in tune with the fact that Mike Evans needs to get over 1,000 yards. He's at 749 right now. He just needs, a couple more big games, and a big one can happen versus the Cowboys. They can take some chances. They can be susceptible to that big play. And really, nobody's been more consistent than Evans with putting up 20-plus point scores. And then you obviously have the huge game ability like we saw last week in 32. I'm fine with some Evans. Definitely going to have some of him. And then I'm also a little interested in Tolbert or Cooks, merely for the fact they are cheap and they're in a good spot versus that Tampa Bay D. I would not play them with CeeDee Lamb unless I was stacking Cooper Rush, which I don't plan to do. But, it's a late game, a 4,900 receiver, 5,700 receiver that has some upside versus a poor defense is pretty interesting to me. Now, getting over to DraftKings and the wide receiver spot, Jalen Coker, high owned, Kayshon Boutte, he's 3,500. Look, in a game that profiles they're going to have to throw a ton, there is a path. Now, he's going to need to get a touchdown or else it doesn't work. But there is a path, and I don't mind it. The Bills also have been worse lately versus the receiver, but they just had a game versus the Lions and the Rams, which likely is a lot of that. So Keenan Allen, we've talked about. Puka, we talked about. DJ Moore, talked about. Let's move it on to tight end. See if we can wrap this thing up quick. All right. Trey McBride, 9% owned. He's in a great spot. Absolutely love him. Brock Bowers, 7,700. Absolutely love him. I think those are my two favorite pay-up options. By far, I don't care if they're higher owned. I'm going to have a lot of both those guys. If I don't pay up for them, it would be George Kittle. After those three, now I have to say this, that I would expect one of those three to hit this week. If they don't hit, then it's anybody's guess who gets it, and it's going to be a more value guy. TJ Hawkinson is one that jumps off the board for me. He's only 5,800. Seattle has struggled versus tight ends for years now, and he's been getting consistent work. So I like that one. Jake Ferguson's another one. Poor Tampa Bay D. He's 5,300. He gets targets, 6.2 targets per game on the season. However, with Cooper Rush, he hasn't fared quite as well, so I don't like it quite as much as if it was Dak. And then you got to talk about Brenton Strange, 5,200. He got 12 targets last week. I think the targets are going to come every time he's really had a chance to be a pass catcher. The targets have come, and I'm interested in, a little bit of Brenton Strange here. And let's get over to tight end on DK. Hunter Henry, 4,100 is too cheap with too much upside not to consider, and in a game environment that may likely has to throw a lot, and Hunter Henry is his best and favorite target. Trey McBride, Bowers, and Kittle, the next 3 highest owned, as they should be. All right, let's get over to defense. New England Patriots, 3K versus Buffalo. I'm not going to try and pick on Josh Allen in that offense. I'm out. Buffalo Bills, 5K versus New England. I'm fine. I don't really want to pay 5K, but I like it. Cowboys versus Tampa Bay. Look, it's in Dallas, and this defense is getting better. They don't have Kate Otten. They don't have Chris Godwin. The defense has been playing well. I think there is some paths to success here. Other one I want to talk about, Cincinnati Bengals versus DTR. The Bengals have had some good scorers versus poor teams. Put up 15 versus Cleveland. Put up 10 versus Raiders. 8 versus Steelers. 8 versus Cowboys. 19 versus Tennessee. There is a path to them doing well and getting a pick 6 or something there. So interested in that. Detroit Lions, cold weather versus the Bears. The D's been solid all year. I'm fine to take some jabs. Don't love 4900 pass or price point. New York Giants. The D was solid in the beginning of the year. They've slid off, but now you have a rookie quarterback. You never know what's going to happen with a rookie quarterback. So a little interest to pay down to them. Arizona Cardinals versus Carolina. Carolina's been a team you want to pick on all year. Now, this defense has been Jekyll and Hyde. There is some upside when they're on. You just don't really know if they are there or not. Carolina Panthers have been playing a little bit better. It's a pay down option if you want to save some salary and just hope for a pick 6 from Kyler, who's been pretty good this season and stopping pick 6s. And then I want to go to the Colts, 4,800 versus Mason Rudolph. Tennessee's been one of the best teams this year to target. So fine taking some shots on them. One thing is Mason Rudolph does protect the ball a little bit better than Will Levis. And then you can go on to the other side, Tennessee Titans versus the Colts, because Richardson likely throws a couple picks. All right, guys, that will do it for us today. Good luck week 16. Let's make some money. Please like, comment, and subscribe. If you have some questions, leave them in the comments here, and I will see you next week. Peace.